Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to join us for this workshop with my beautiful friend. And she's going to be giving us tips for raising sensitive children, which is so important right now because our children are so special. They're so intuitive. And the more that we can hold space for them physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, the better that the easier almost it makes our lives, but also them. So we're not constantly like polarizing authorities and figures, but equal partners in this crazy thing we call life. So I'm going to just let you take it away and guide us through this beautiful conversation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Annika Moreda. I am a mom to 4 young children. I have twins that are 6. I have a 5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old in April. I am a professional intuitive, so I offer readings, healings, and activations for mothers and children. I'm also a mentor. It's one of the things I'm most passionate about is mentoring mamas and helping them become their own healers and really connect to their intuition and their power that they hold within. I have a tremendous amount of experience with children, with my own children, but also clients' children. And I'm going to share a little bit of insight with you that I have gathered through reading children. I specialize in connecting with the past life, either mothers or children's past lives, and experiencing them to help me understand what your purpose is here on earth and what the mission is that you're here to fulfill. So in doing that, I've been provided with a lot of insight as to what these new souls are here to do on earth. There is some extremely powerful souls that are coming from the realms that are closer to God than ever before, and they're being handpicked by angels, by God himself, by some of the most higher powers in the universe to come to earth at this time, because this is such a pivotal moment in our history where we are experiencing a tremendous amount of up-leveling in our frequency and in our in the way that we live, really all together. It's all encompassed. And I think that supporting these souls that are coming in is going to be so important. And in my experience with my children, all of them are sensitive. They are all sensitive in different ways. So it doesn't look the same for every child, but it has a similar thread because it all takes this innate awareness and this knowing that our children are more than just this human form. They're carrying a really important mission that's going to change this world as we know it today, and that they were handpicked to do this. So how can we support them in these missions that they're here to fulfill? Because it feels really big when you think of it on a grander scale, but there are these simple steps that you can take as a mother to help support your child as they walk into their life's path, and to keep them on path and help them along the way, connecting to their intuition and allowing them to feel comfortable in their environment and giving them lifestyle, teaching them a specific lifestyle to help them support themselves moving forward in the future. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you, because this is the thing that came through as the most important to share, and I feel like it's the most controversial, which is really interesting because I was going to try and like tuck this in maybe like the third point, but they were making it really clear it had to be the first. And so I'm just going to drop it on you guys. The first one is food. And I see this a lot in readings with children. This will come through, and the child soul will be asking their family to bring their awareness to the kinds of food that they're bringing into their diets in their families' homes, and then also specifically feeding to this child. Our bodies are an important vessel to house our souls. It's how our energy comes through on earth. And if these vessels, our bodies, are not in alignment with the energy that our soul holds, there's going to be a disconnect there. And that disconnect can end up coming through as chronic illness, things like ADHD, can experience poor behaviors, um, poor sleep. There's a number of things that will come through when this disconnect is present. And I've recognized it in my own children. My daughter had chronic ear infections and she had them for 3 years. She would wake up 12 to 24 times a night. So I didn't sleep for almost 3 years straight. And she was a twin. And of course, I had another baby in between. It was crazy. But I ended up learning when coronavirus hit and we were all wondering what to do. And if we were supposed to be seeing people, we hunkered down and just kept everybody at home. And this was my time to figure out how to heal her. And I started looking into using medical medium protocols, and I pulled out the inflammatory foods from her diet and then gave her a tremendous amount of healing foods, fruit, vegetables. I even pulled grains out of her diet because I felt like that wasn't also supporting her immune system. And the idea was to build her immune system so that she could heal finally once and for all from this chronic ear infections. We were at the point where they were telling us that we were going to be getting tubes put in her ears. So we were at the point where it was surgery or figure this out. So I was feeling a lot of pressure. Within a month's time, she healed from her ear infections and she has not had one since. So that told me that her energy, she is also a child who's very connected to the other realms. She's very angelic in spirit. She's very light and bubbly. She's bright. She attracts many people to her light. People instantly fall in love with her. She's very loving and caring. She's definitely a healer. She wants to take care of babies. She has this innate motherly nature about her. And with all of these, I discovered that that disconnect between the foods and her energy, it wasn't working. And so when I found what worked and all of a sudden it clicked, everything changed for us. She started sleeping through the night again. Her ear infections went away. She started experiencing hair growth and nail growth that she had never had before. Her height she started growing more. And she was just generally happier. So I will look at pictures of her before, and her energy, her aura wasn't as glowing or vivacious. She also was ungrounded in nature. I could see in the pictures that her face, there was a bit of a disconnect from her mind and her body. And in shifting into these ways of eating, she was able to connect all together, her soul and her physical body. Another thing that my guides wanted me to share with you about the foods is that sugar is a very important part of a child's development. And they want you to know that fruit sugar is not the same as processed sugar. Processed sugar, as you can imagine, on an energetic level, it's been processed. And by the things that have touched it in the way that it has been processed is not supportive to a child's brain development. What they're referring to is fruit sugars. And these sugars actually act as a cooling mechanism to their brain. When they are at these stages of life, they are like sponges. They're learning everything. They're bringing everything into their life. And from the phases of learning how to walk and talk, to the phases of learning how to write and read, to learning how to play sports and connect this physical body and how it all works. All of these are forcing your brain to work in overdrive. And that's a beautiful thing. But how can we support that at this time in this development phase? and that is bringing in an abundant amount of fruit. Children are already very naturally drawn to fruit. You'll see that if you give them a choice, they'll usually always go for the fresh fruit, strawberries, grapes, any kind of berries. My children, sometimes for dinner, if they don't feel like eating the dinner that I've cooked, they'll choose a fruit, and I'm okay with that. I feel very confident that the fruit is probably what their body needed more than what the dinner is that I created for them. And I will allow them to choose fruit over a cooked meal. So to me, fruit is king. It's above all else, more so than vegetables. I would not worry about giving your child vegetables unless it's leafy greens, because in that case, it has some really beautiful electrolytes and mineral salts that also help and support the brain development. And if you can sneak that in a smoothie, that's like my trick. My kids love smoothies, and I'll put spinach in the smoothies. But know that if your child is craving fruit, that is not wrong, and to lean into those cravings. Allow them to have the fruit. If they have fruit for breakfast, if that is a single meal, that's okay. And that's exactly what their brain is needing at this moment. You might watch your child go from some really chaotic energy and then be able to ground into a more calm energy after they've had this fruit too. Things like mangoes are really high in magnesium, so you can watch their bodies actually calm down. I love giving mangoes to my children before bed. It's my trick for helping them sleep through the night because it's very relaxing. It helps with their bodies relaxing, but also their brains and their minds. So they'll fight the sleep a little less. It's easier to get them to bed. Other important fruits that are things that you're going to want to guide them towards are berries. Berries are very supportive of the immune system and the brain function, specifically wild blueberries. Melons are very hydrating, which is something that I notice with my kids. They play so hard, they forget to hydrate. And that's another beautiful thing about fruit, is that it's very hydrating. There is living water in fruit. So the energy that they're getting by eating fruit is just elevating their frequency and supporting their sensitivities on an energetic level. Another important thing to note is that by lowering inflammatory foods, our sensitive children will be able to connect to their souls, their intuition, and their guides better. While at a young age, they may not understand what this connection is. They also know innately that this is a very important piece to who they are and how they function. Just as any person, as we age, we begin to compare and learn that being intuitive or being able to see spirits and orbs may not be something that everybody can see and experience, but our children may be experiencing these things regularly. And to be able to support them through this process, to allow them to connect to their guides so that they can have a clearer understanding of what is going on, is going to be really important. So you can help remove some of the fog that they're experiencing when they're eating inflammatory foods or really high fatty foods, processed foods, foods that are really high in salt. All of these things are going to kind of create this cloudiness in their connection to their intuition.
And
Okay.
if I can ask a question,
Yeah,
because I'm
go
sure
ahead.
a lot of the moms are gonna be like, okay, yeah, that's great. That sounds good in theory. But how do we reverse the bad, habits that we might have already kind of like initiated? Like, what are your tools? Like, what have you, guided moms through to like start making those shifts?
Mhm. That's such a good point. Some of the things that I have done and seen work is that if you continuously offer your children fruits and vegetables, they're going to have a curiosity about them. it's about removing the pressure. Don't put the pressure on them. You have to eat this, sit down and finish your broccoli. It's more about, look, this is broccoli. Doesn't it look like a tree? Kind of turning it into something fun.
Yeah.
Also making food fun to consume. So the way that you cut the fruit, mangoes, for example, I'll cut it down the seed and then I will cut it into squares and then turn it inside out and it looks a bit like a flower. My children love to eat it when it looks like a flower. If you are making something like a smoothie, that's a really great tool to get all of the nutrients into your children. Let them help. So we have special knives that they get to use in the kitchen, and we will invite them in to help us make these smoothies. Or my kids love a good juice bar. And so if I let them pick out what they want to juice and they cut everything and they get to taste their creations, this becomes a really fun activity for them. And they don't even know that what they're consuming is also very healing for them too.
So I think like, and what I'm feeling and hearing you say, because I could recognize this in my own day, like, when we get so caught up and when we're so busy, and then it's just like, sometimes our relationship to food becomes like emotional, especially when it comes to our kids, where we're like, this is what we cooked, you need to eat it. Like, I can't argue with you right now. It becomes like a source of like tension when we can recreate like this relationship to food in our children of being more intentional about it, more deliberate, but also more compassion. Like having more compassion, because I see it in my 3-year-old daughter, and I've had readings with you, and she's like, light workers are rebellious by nature. So it's more about having the patience and like having the compassion to say, okay, well, I know we've been doing it like this, but it's never too late to establish better habits and create a more harmonious exchange, and like pivoting that mindset of what our children get to consume, and it being, the choices that you are also putting in front of them. Like maybe instead of buying the chips or the cookies, we're buying more fruits, and we're doing more smoothies, more juice bars, more like meaningful activities. It's just also in like, because I see a lot of, our internal programming of what we pick up at the grocery store. Like, when we're on autopilot and we're like, oh, but we always buy this. And the message I've been getting in so many like different channeled messages is like, we're not doing it the way that we used to do it. Like we get to choose it's never too late to decide to pivot.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Another thing about it being not ever being too late is that the older they get, there's this beautiful opportunity to let them in on the reasons why you're feeding them these foods. So that's another really important part for me, is that letting my children know why we're eating these foods. There's this wonderful book by Medical Medium, and it's almost like an encyclopedia of healing foods, and it's called Life-Changing Foods. And the information in that book helps me to share with my children the reason why we're eating what we're eating. This helps support your liver, which helps support your immune system. So when you go to daycare or to school and there's a bug there, it helps your body fight the bug faster so you don't feel sick longer. And all of these things resonate with them. They're going to understand what you're saying as long as you're putting it out there and letting them see why you're giving them these new options.
Yeah.
It's not because you're forcing it upon them, but there are reasons why, and letting them in on that knowledge is going to be really foundational too for making that change.
Absolutely.
Good questions, Christine. Okay. Now the second one that is something that has been a work in progress for me is the environment of which our children are in, from schools, daycare, to our home environment, the people that they're around, our parents, their grandparents. All of these environmental factors are really important to creating our children and supporting their sensitivities. You are going to start seeing a big shift from conventional schooling to alternative schooling. And I don't mean that necessarily there's going to be, all of us are going to be pulling out of conventional schools and nobody's going to be able to work and we're all going to have to homeschool. And then what happens to our jobs? It's going to be a really slow transition, and it's happening now. But what we are also seeing is beautiful new schools popping up, nature schools, forest schools, and all of these are with the intention and on a grander scale are part of this huge movement in raising these sensitive souls. We all have this innate knowing that things are going to have to change. It is a new world and things are not going to ever look the same as what they used to be. And so stepping into this new world, setting environments around our children that are going to support their sensitivities, support their growth in a gentle, kind, not so forced nature is going to be really important. Schools is just one example. Another example is setting your home space and their bedroom environment. I've heard a lot of parents lately too having issues with their children sleeping. And what I always say for the children that are not sleeping is check the environment. Is there something scary in their room? Maybe a stuffed animal that's a little maniacal? Is there possibly a spider figure or an insect that might just be a toy, but it has more of a resonance than that for our sensitive children? So removing things like that from their environment and then bringing in high vibrational things. Something like crystals. I love rose quartz for kids. Rose quartz has this beautiful, nourishing, loving energy, and it emits this high frequency of love and just fills their rooms with love. I will do a crystal grid in their room, so setting one crystal in each corner of the room and then one underneath where they're sleeping, whether it's under their mattress or under their bed. This grid creates a strong centering technique for the energy of each crystal to connect, and then almost as if a diffuser is working through their room and cleansing and elevating their frequency in the room, ultimately making it more inviting and comfortable for them to sleep in.
Love that. I love that so much. Yeah,
that's a good one. Another really cool thing is that music and these sensitive souls are so I feel like it's really important. Music is a very important tool for these sensitive souls, and it doesn't mean that we have to force them into playing music or becoming musicians. It's just knowing as a parent that something as simple as turning on meditation music, spa music, binaural beats, something like that you can pull up on YouTube. You can get it on any of your streaming stations, and turning it on, this will profoundly affect and change the environment that your children are in. So if they get home from school and they're feeling really wound up, they're having a hard time transitioning from that school environment to the home environment, turning on music like this that's calming and soothing in the background. It doesn't have to be loud. They don't even have to really be listening to it. This will help them acclimate back into this home environment. It's going to calm their parasympathetic nervous system. It's going to bring their energy back to them, where their energy might be spread out and scattered from being around a lot of other people's energy throughout the day. It's going to help them really create this safe environment back into their energetic field and their auras. Keeping their environments organized and simplified. I'm seeing more and more that our children and these sensitive souls are calling for less. And what that means is less complicated toys, less toys What they're really looking for is that connection with earth. So things like sticks and rocks and leaves, plants in their room, bringing these things into their environment are going to help them feel really good about their rooms. And the clutter that these manufactured toys have are carrying a frequency that are no longer a vibrational fit for these sensitive souls. And that's it's really interesting because that can be very triggering for us and our generation, or even generations previous, where toys were a sign of money and financial stability. And transitioning out of that is really going to take some intentional mindset unlearning, because it's really not about the toys anymore and the amount of toys. It's about the quality of play and what they get out of these toys. My children are constantly bringing home the things I find in my house: sticks, feathers, rocks, um, flowers, grass. We have baskets that they fill and they make nests out of moss. And weeks later, I'm finding it, and thankfully it all dries just fine. But it's all of these things that are so important to allow your children to bring into their environment. So our first idea at bringing things from nature into their rooms is a hard no, because it's dirty, it's messy. But they know that the frequency that these things are carrying are what they need. It's almost like the medicine that they're needing for their soul at that time. So allowing them to have a little more control over their environment, bringing in the toys and the things from nature that are meaningful to them, and really letting go as a parent of the idea of what their room should look like, because they already have an idea of what they want their room to look like. My children are also at an age now where the 5 and 6 year olds are aware of what they're ready to donate as for toys. So asking your children if they are ready to let go of this. Do you want to create a box of toys that we can donate to other children or that we can give away? And they're really excited about doing that. So that's another thing that you can do with your child, is bringing their awareness to things that they don't play with anymore, and letting them simplify their own environment and organize their own environment so that they feel a little more in control of their rooms and the places that are so sacred to them, the places that should be set with their energetic fingerprint, for lack of a better word. That's what they're creating for themselves in their bedrooms.
So a lot of a lot of it is triggering for most people, because I think, our generation is really feeling that, like, control, like, or, power dynamics and authority. So a lot of it is like allowing our children to really, like, form their own opinions, and from very young, like establishing like our boundaries, but also like not feeling like we need to control or limit or, have that power dynamic over them.
Yeah, that's I think part of all of this is that our children are also healing us, and by teaching us how to unlearn these dynamics that we have, well, that we were raised with, and that the world is us. This is why our children are here. They're not just for us to teach, but they're teaching us as well. And it can be really painful and triggering and emotional along the way. And trust me, I've been there. And it also doesn't affect me only as a parent, but it affects the grandparents too. So you're going to watch the people around you being triggered by some of this shift and change too. And know that that's okay. And understanding your why and holding on to that is going to be the most important thing for you as a parent, shifting out of the old paradigms of parenting, moving into the new ones.
Absolutely. Like I find myself, holding that boundary for my children though. before going into motherhood, I was like, I'm never gonna let I thought I was gonna be the strictest mom ever. Like, they're never gonna play in dirt. And now I'm just like, whatever. Like, they're bringing in like you said, like sticks and rocks, like they're playing in dirt. And I'm like, well, whatever. We're gonna take a bath after this anyway. Because I really do feel like it is, like you said, like the medicine that their soul wants, and having to hold that boundary for my children in front of grandparents where they're like, you can't let them get dirty, and they shouldn't be doing this and they shouldn't be doing that. And even the words that they use when they're talking to my children, I'm like, oh, we don't say that. Like, having to hold that boundary, and really, like, in a loving, compassionate way, where you're saying like, we're doing things differently, and so
Right.
don't be offended by it. Kind of just like re-educating our parents on how to approach, and it's not perfect, because they're going to be the ones loading our kids with the processed stuff, the sugar, and it's hard to also find that boundary. But if you do it with compassion and love, as much as you can, then we all do the best we can.
Yeah, definitely. That's beautiful. I have a tremendous amount of workshop uh holding your boundaries with your parents and your in-laws, and really keeping track of your why and holding that really close to you, because I'm so passionate about supporting these sensitive children, and this is a new age, a new time, unlike ever before. So we cannot compare the past to the present, because it's just like comparing apples to oranges. There's no comparison. And holding on to that really strongly for your children, because ultimately the goal is to be able to support them through adulthood. What we're doing right now is foundational for creating a lifestyle for them for the future.
So important.
It is. I agree. Okay, I also, let's see, next one that I have to share is communication, which kind of ties into what you were saying. Communicating with these souls is what they've shared with me is it's different than ever before. And what I experience with my children is that they have such a strong connection to their intuition that anything that you're withholding from them, but also experiencing emotionally, is already there. It's already present. There's no hiding it. So if you aren't saying things with words, but you are experiencing it in real time around your children, they already know. They know what's going on. So it is worth giving them the words and the explanation, because at this young age that my children are, even though I'm not saying what's going on, they already know. They know mommy's stressed. They know that there is huge change in the air and that things are shifting. They know that mommy has had a bad day, or if mommy is sad. All of these things they know about. So why not talk about it with them? Because what they end up feeling like is that they feel isolated. They feel alone when you aren't letting them in on what's going on with you, especially when you are the main caregiver and you are setting the premise for the energy in the home, in your family life. Communication is going to be key. I find myself often getting down to their eye level and letting them in on what's going on. Saying something like, mommy just feels really sad today. And you don't have to tell them why, because the whys aren't important, but acknowledging the emotions that are present is really important. And letting them know that you are working through it too, that acknowledging that you aren't perfect and that mommy has emotions too, and that it's okay. It's okay for mommy to feel sad. It's also letting yourself, giving yourself permission to not be okay in that moment with your children. We don't have to be the strong, stoic mothers that we have learned in the past. It's actually really important for our children to see us be human and to watch us heal, because in doing that, we're giving them the permission to do the very same thing. And if we can do this with a sense of grace and ease and let them in on our processes, it's going to give them the tools to be able to move through it with grace and ease in the future. This moment in time, it's really important too that we are doing this because there's going to be many more shifts to come. We're going to be experiencing a tremendous amount of change. And while we are experiencing it now, we're seeing women switching careers. We're watching children move to a more unconventional school system. You're seeing it in the home with finances. Finances are shifting from where they used to be coming from a steady stream here. You're going to watch it coming from over here. All people are moving. People are moving out of big cities into places where we can be more connected with nature. All of these shifts are going to continue to happen. And so if we can communicate with our children and let them in on what is going on, they can also better understand how they feel, because they feel a type of way about these things that are going on. But if you aren't acknowledging it yourself, they won't know how to put words to it for their future feelings. So communication is a really important one here. There's also communication that goes beyond verbal. And our children that are coming in, especially these sensitive children, are able to communicate through telepathy. This is something that mothers have a strong innate ability to do with babies. We don't need to hear words, I'm hungry. We already know through sounds, through movements, and through learning just who they are and their energy that we know what they need at that moment. And so we are going to be able to see this kind of communication roll over from not just being a baby, but we're going to see it into toddlerhood. We're going to watch it into them being kids, from their teenagers, and then we're going to continue this beautiful connection with our children on throughout the years. How can you support this telepathy and this connection? This has a lot to do with maintaining a clear connection to your own intuition. And when you feel a thought popping up into your head about your child, that it doesn't feel like it's fear driven, know that that is that connection to the telepathy that you're having. My children are starting to creep me out because they will say things that I'm thinking and I'm like, how, that's really wild. How did you know that? And they'll ask me questions. I mean, for example, we were driving in the car the other day and my daughter goes, "What is managed?" And I was thinking about my business and managing my business. And I said, "What?" She says, "What does managed mean?" And obviously what she was picking up on was what I was thinking about, because nothing was talking about management on the radio. It was just me and my children. So there was no other adult in the car speaking like this. And so I went on to explain to her what that was and what was going on in my head. So bringing your awareness to situations like this that are not coincidental. This is your child and they still have this really strong connection with you and this telepathy that they're experiencing. So this can actually be quite challenging because now we're not only having to manage our verbal communication, but we're having to bring more intention to our thoughts. And this can be very challenging, especially when you're going through so many shifts that we are here as humanity. We can tend to lean towards more fearful thoughts, and we're being challenged to get to grow out of the fear and move into a place of empowerment and a place of faith. So if you can do that, you are going to watch your children follow suit. Just hang on, let me get one more message here. Yeah, they're also sharing. That's me. That kind of ties into the next one. So if you are needing support in moving out of a negative thought cycle, or if you catch yourself in a negative thought cycle, know that there are tools for you to move out of that. There is a wonderful book that I love. It's called The 8 Secrets of Manifesting by Mandy Morris, or 8 Powerful Secrets of Manifesting. That one is not necessarily just about manifesting, but it has a lot to do with your thoughts and how to not control them, but how to shift them. She gives some really beautiful tools as to how to step out of your thoughts and really change and break up those negative thought cycles for you, and then also for your children. Her techniques helped me tremendously. I still use a lot of her tools, and I think it would be really worth you if you find yourself in these negative thought cycles, or while I was speaking about it, you begin to ask, well, how can I do that? Where do I start to change my thoughts? Like, how do I have control over my thoughts? That is going to be a really beautiful place for you to begin. Christine, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, it just makes sense, because I just keep going back to, like, the ancestral part of it, of, a generation that was like so not emotionally available or attached, and our children really needing that, because I think it's important for us to recognize that as a new generation of mothers ourselves, we are reprogramming and reconditioning a lot of our ancestral beliefs and patterns. And like you said, a lot of these children do not come from our lineages, so to speak, as we have. Like, a lot of them are, and when I do spirit baby readings as well, like, I'm seeing like these kids are having less and less karma, or they haven't lived past lives with this lineage or this generation. So we're seeing a lot of these new children, and it just makes sense why we're being called to do everything so differently.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And what a beautiful thing for you to be able to see too with the spirit babies coming in, is that it's not a lineage that is continuing this karmic cycle. And that's such a good point, because what's really happening is that these karmic cycles are ending.
Yep.
And we as parents are breaking the cycles, and then our children are starting anew.
Yes.
And they're going to have the benefits of all of the work that we are putting in now as parents.
And I think that's a powerful thing to really ground into and to anchor into on those days where you're like, I don't want to see my child right now, because they're, these kids are really intuitive. They're really special, but, they're going to be rebellious. They're going to be children. They're going to push our buttons and our boundaries, but just acknowledging, and again, having that compassion of, we're establishing something different. Like, we're parenting differently, they're showing up differently, and just like really grounding and anchoring into that, I think will help a lot of moms who might be feeling overwhelmed by some of these things that you're sharing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great segue into something that is almost, I guess, that could preface this whole thing, is that if you heal yourself as a mother, all of these things are going to fall into place. So I think the most important place and the most foundational place that you could start is with yourself. Our children are asking us, they're guiding us, and they're pushing us to heal ourselves. And if we are feeling overwhelmed by our children, know that those are signs that you need to take the steps to heal. And find your coaches, book time with your healer, talk with your best friend. If you feel like she gives you good advice, listen to the podcast, find the free workshops, connect with your tribe, so that you can start to heal and move through these things, so that you no longer feel triggered or so often triggered by your children, because they are in a way teaching you that now is the time for you to also heal and to support yourself.
That's like another level of self-care for sure.
Yes,
It's
it
true.
is.
It's so important. A lot of the women that come to me for spirit baby readings and are experiencing fertility issues is because of this, because of, you know, the energetic blockages or the emotional or the mental energy that is taking up so much space within them that they literally cannot birth humans because, you know, our energetic attachments are so strong sometimes to our trauma or our wounds. Rather than sitting through them and clearing the energy or the attachment to it, we are literally attaching ourselves to these disempowering things that we can just start to disassociate from and separate ourselves from.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful, Christine. It's so right on track. So I'm really glad that you brought this up, because it's something that I experienced as a mother, was my healing journey. And for me, it was a very long, drawn out journey. It started with chronic illness, and I was very, very sick. And then from there, I healed my physical vessel, and then I found my soul. And then I learned how to align all of it. And because I have gone through that process, I can now be such a stronger support system for my family, not just my children, but my husband too. I know how to now hold space for them. I don't feel so triggered by the things that happen around me. And I also have a deeper understanding of the why behind what's going on, from the meltdown to the snide comment. I have a deeper sense of compassion for the members of my family, but also myself. And I think that's really important part of parenting and being able to support these sensitive children ourselves.
Huge. I think that's all the shifts right there, is being able to look at it and say, okay, like take a step back, what's going on, not participate in it, but be an observer to it, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
to be able to like shift the energy of your family forward and saying, you know, I acknowledge and I honor that you're feeling this way right now or that this is happening, but also helping them move forward. And it is vulnerability, honesty, not having to hide anymore, giving ourselves permission to like, don't hide anything. Like, take the
Yeah.
time that you need for yourself, you know, eliminating a lot of what you're saying too is like not feeling guilty or the shame of motherhood, and saying like, that's okay if your child had an off day or didn't get to, went to a birthday party and like binged on all of the things that we don't normally eat at home, but you know, we get to start again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. Too, is that our children, it's not about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how to get back on track.
Yeah.
That's where the win comes. It's not about making sure that life looks this way all the time, but it's knowing how to get it back on track so that life can be this way again.
Yeah.
So that when you hit a speed bump or you get off track, it doesn't mean that this is your new direction. You know how to bring it back into center and ground it into that. And I guess that's a part of keeping your why in your mind. And then also a part of that journey of healing for both you and your children.
So powerful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
you're so welcome.
please share, you know, please share how women can work with you. I mean, I personally have experienced so many different readings for all levels of my family from Annika, and they were just so beautiful, from like talking about my daughter and like helping with healing protocols for her. And it's just so important. And it's like wild to say, right? That, you know, imagine our parents being like, oh, I need a healer for
Yeah.
my daughter. But it's true. Like, you know, we just want to do the best that we can for our children to set them up to be the light that we need in this collective society. So I think it's just so powerful that we're being activated and called to step into this new space right now.
Mm.
So how can people work with you?
I love that. Um, you can find me on Instagram at Aligned Mamas Healing. And you can also find me at alignedmamashealing.com. I offer readings and I also have 2 programs. If you are interested in getting a reading for your child anytime soon, April 18th, I am offering a new program that I've called Align with Child. And it's basically an extended version of a session with me. So sessions with me look like a voice recording. You book on a Monday, you'll get the recording by a Friday. I do this so that I can work around my family and not fit my family around my work, because my family is my number one and it's the most important to me. I also homeschool my children, so I have windows throughout the day, but they're not always consistent. So if you were interested in booking this session with me, looking into the Align with Child program would be like beyond the support that you get in a session, because we will have live group readings where you can ask me the questions. I will download whatever information you need. We will start with soul purpose readings, and that includes past life in the first week. The second week will be just healings for your child. And then the third week is when we discover the tools that we need to move forward. So sometimes when you get a reading, it's really great information, but you don't know what to do with it. This is going to give you the tools to move forward after the reading and the healing. It's going to help you as a mother align with becoming a more soul-led parent. And all of the tools that you'll learn in the program won't only be applicable to your single child that you're focusing on this program, but also to all of your children moving forward in life. So they're just going to be really beautiful foundational tools for you. That journey begins April 18th. So if you're interested, you can sign up for that program right now on my website. If you're interested in booking a session, you can also find that on the website. I also host a mentorship, and we just got done with our first mentorship, and it was so beautiful, teaching the women how to connect to their intuition, guiding them to meeting their guides, and then teaching them their soul purpose, and then figuring. So if you're interested in learning and connecting with your own intuition, you can find the mentorship on my website as well. I did promise one thing. I would say that I would share angels for the kids too. And I didn't want to leave that out because I think that's so important. It's something that I use every single day. There are angels that you can find in the medical medium books, but the ones that I love for my children are the angel of light, the angel of love, the angel of peace, the angel of harmony. You can also call on the angel of relationships if you feel like you're having a tumultuous moment with your child or your spouse, anyone that you are in relationship with. The angel of communication, the angel of healing, and the angel of sleep. All of those I use a lot. Call their name out loud before praying to them. These are a small army of angels that not everyone knows about, so they are not called on as often as the archangels are, and so they have a more available time to work with you. I've seen some incredible miracles happen after calling on these angels, so if you feel called, please use those as really wonderful tools for you too.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah, I've been incorporating the angels more, and it's true. You really do see beautiful, beautiful shifts with them.
Definitely.
Right. Thank you
Oh,
so much. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out and share in the community. Have a
definitely.
wonderful
Yes.
day.
Oh, thank you, Christine. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.